how's it going? It's been a while since we last spoke.
Who's that?
Welcome back to another Five Nights at Freddy's Retrospective episode. 3 years ago, we went through a 3-chapter arc where we went through all of the main Five Nights at Freddy's games. In Chapter 1, we started off with a story of how indie game developer Scott Cawthon created the franchise we all know and love, and how he came up with the story about 5 children who went missing at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Ranging from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, 2, 3, and 4, the story was about a purple guy who went on to create the many different pizza restaurants to lure families and stuff kids' bodies inside the suits of the main mascot animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. In Chapter 2, as we went through FNAF World, a lighthearted RPG, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, and Ultimate Custom Night, we learned the identity of our mysterious purple guy to be a man named William Afton. We learn of Afton's origins and why he became the man he was. We learned how he worked with another man named Henry Emily to help create the Fazbear brand, and how Afton designed the animatronic characters over the years while also having to deal with the deaths of his own family. Afton's daughter, Elizabeth, got scooped up by one of his creations. His youngest son got chomped on the head by the big jaws of a yellow bear, causing the infamous event known as the Bite of 83.
Was that the Bite of 87?
And finally, in Chapter 3, we went through the modern timeline of events, going from Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, the now discontinued Five Nights at Freddy's AR Special Delivery, and Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, where years after the events of William Afton's many deaths, we find out that he once again has come back, as he always does. Of course, leading into today's brand new chapter. Since then, we've had multiple books come out, 2 movies produced by Blumhouse Productions, and multiple collabs such as the Dead by Daylight Springtrap / Yellow Rabbit DLC. This time, we're going to be going through Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach's Ruin DLC, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2, Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit, and Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. And what better timing for this chapter? Since recently, for the franchise's 12th anniversary, we just got brand new teasers for 2 upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's games, being FNAF World 2 and what could possibly be Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach 2. So with that said, let's continue this terrifying adventure and jump right into the ruins of Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex.
Cassie, I hope you get this message. I'm trapped here at the Pizzaplex, or what's left of it. I don't have time to go into how I got here, but you've got to help me out. Save me, Cassie, please. It's so dark down here.
After an amount of time since Freddy and Gregory defeated the supposed William Afton from beneath the Pizzaplex, a young girl named Cassie is called by Gregory to come to the Pizzaplex, which, thanks to a giant sinkhole, the whole building is now in ruin. As Cassie makes her way through the many locations we once visited as Gregory, we fight off against ruined and withered versions of Freddy, Chica, Monty, and Roxy. We also learned that before the events of Security Breach, the Pizzaplex once had a Glamrock Bonnie character, where according to some cardboard cutouts on a Monty ride, we find out that Bonnie passed on the mantle onto Monty, making him the new lead bass player. However, after going through some secrets in Ruin by disabling a lot of wet floor signs, you will be greeted with the shocking discovery that Bonnie was in fact killed by Monty.
And what's supposed to happen when you collect all the Pat-Pats is that a Pat-Pat should be here, the last one that you deactivate, and then this area here opens up to go and see Glamrock Bonnie. But unfortunately, there's a bug right now where the last Pat-Pat doesn't spawn here. And there he is, guys! Glamrock Bonnie in the flesh. This is where Glamrock Bonnie got murdered by Monty. So it looks like Monty has shoved Bonnie onto the wall, ripped his stomach open. You can see Monty's claw here. You can see here, there's a split bowling ball.
Smashing Bonnie with a bowling ball and with several claw marks across his body, Monty didn't earn his role in the band. He took it from Bonnie. At the start of this adventure, Cassie comes across a small device called a Faz Wrench, which can allow you to solve puzzles. She even recalls having the device look exactly the same as her dad's, meaning that Cassie's dad works for Fazbear Entertainment. She also encounters a mask bot, which then hands Cassie Vanny's mask, or as the game calls it, the Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integration, which allows her to view the world around her through an AR perspective, which somehow allows her to travel through areas completely blocked off and solve puzzles that can't be solved while in the physical environment. But don't keep that mask on for too long, because if not, then you will be greeted by... Yes, a security protocol taking the form of a black rabbit will try to prevent you from making any progression if you keep the Vanny mask on for too long. If you keep the mask on for too long, the Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage, or MIXes for short, will then direct an animatronic to your location since it can't physically kill you. There will be times where you need to act quickly, as the MIXes at times when near you or when you have an AR inhibitor still active, the Vanny mask won't be able to come off. Simply get as far away from the MIXes as possible, deactivate any AR inhibitors that may be around, and take the mask off so you can avoid this. As you slowly reach the Roxy Raceway to save Gregory from the sinkhole, you come across Roxy, who has been pinned down by a forklift. Surprisingly, throughout Ruin, the only character to not fully attack you is Roxy. During the events of this DLC, Roxy is only looking for Gregory just to retake her eyes back. If you remember in the base game, after Roxy got into a car crash with Gregory, her eyes got removed and given to Freddy as part of an upgrade. Once Roxy found Cassie thinking it was Gregory, she quickly let go of her, meaning that she was no longer being fully controlled by the glitch trap virus.
Give me back my eyes! Ah! Let go! Let go! I'm sorry. Error.
Gregory tells Cassie that to set him free, she must deactivate one last security protocol node, being Roxy herself. Being forced to say goodbye to her animatronic friend, Cassie then makes her way down into the sinkhole where Gregory is. Just before reaching Gregory, though, we come across a familiar face, who for a certain number of tokens that you can find in this area, has a story to tell.
I am a candy cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy. Now I will tell you a story about a mother and her little boy who lived alone in a cabin in the dark woods. There was a monster in the woods, but the mother caught it and kept it locked in the basement. The monster always made scary noises at night, but the mother would tell the boy not to worry because it could never get out. Then she would sing the boy a lullaby to sleep. One day, the monster stopped prowling and instead listened and learned the lullaby. The next day, when Mother went out to find food, the monster sang the lullaby from the basement. The little boy heard the lullaby and opened the door.
I'm sure this isn't any foreshadowing whatsoever. Upon reaching where Gregory is trapped, you deactivate the Mix's protocol node and finally set Gregory free. But plot twist, it turns out that the voice we have been hearing the entire time wasn't Gregory. Lo and behold, it be a character first introduced in the books, now fully canon in the game's story timeline. Almost getting killed by the Mimic, Cassie is somehow saved by Roxy? A small chase sequence begins as the real Gregory begins to explain everything. Gregory reveals that the Mix's entity was created to keep the Mimic locked up, but now that Cassie was tricked into shutting it off and setting the Mimic free, he can't allow Cassie to leave. So, what does he do?
No!
It's unclear of what Cassie's fate is, as we still haven't been told anything about it. My guess is, if she stays fully trapped in the sinkhole, it isn't a good ending for her. That's for sure. Now, there are two other different endings to Ruin. One of which, where instead of listening to Gregory to escape, you can turn left into a small cave where there will be a Freddy cutter waiting for you that allows you to put on the Vanny mask for some reason. When putting it on, you see an image of Gregory and Vanessa sitting on a hill next to a tree. The other ending can only be found by locating hidden cameras throughout Ruin, where, when finding all of them, opens a secret door. When you reach the Mimic, who is now in a costume, and continue the chase as normal, a new path is open where going through it reveals a scooping room similar to Sister Location. After luring the Mimic inside, the scooper then does its thing, killing the Mimic for good. And that was the Ruin DLC for Security Breach. It's unclear which ending is the canon ending, but if I had to take a guess, it would have to go with the elevator ending. Overall, a massive improvement over the base game. The tone was a lot scarier, objectives and level design felt a lot more linear, making the game feel a lot more claustrophobic. It was just an overall improvement over the original release. The DLC also came along with a few updates to the base game, which did also help the game in some ways. Yes, there will sometimes be the occasional glitch and bug here and there, but the game finally runs a lot better compared to its launch state. But wait! How did the Mimic get underneath the Pizzaplex in the first place? And where did it come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Well, these questions would soon be answered.
Welcome back for another week of career fulfillment and minimal social interaction. We know how challenging it can be to find a place where you feel that you truly belong, and to find a job that treats you mostly with respect and only infrequently with contempt. For that reason, we are excited to inform you that you did an adequate enough job the first time around to have you back. Also, there were no other applicants. So strap yourself in and get motivated to an appropriate degree. 'Cause you ain't seen nothing yet.
Well, we must be really desperate for money knowing we came back to work for them. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 continues the fun VR experience with more minigames. Just like Help Wanted 1, some of the minigames recreate some of the original FNAF games. And this one mainly from Sister Location. But it also includes brand new minigames featuring the glam rock versions of the animatronics we know. The story of Help Wanted 2 is somewhat short. It's unknown who we are, but going by the many fan theories, we seem to take the role of Cassie's dad. who also for an unknown reason somehow ends up at the FNAF Pizzeria Simulator location with the Vanny mask. And after disabling an AR inhibitor and going through some more minigames, you come across a purple glitched token, which can be used to play a new Princess Quest minigame. About halfway into playing the arcade game, somehow the princess character stands next to you, who then gives you the very sword to continue the adventure yourself, only this time in first person. When reaching the end, you go in the sister location elevator, which then takes you up to the inside of a giant claw machine where a giant Vanny is waiting. Moon then appears waiting for you to give him the glitch trap plush you collected throughout the princess's quest. When the plush gets dropped down into the prize gap, Vanny picks him up only to be crushed and presumably killed, finally putting an end to the glitch trap virus. That is, unless you play all of the minigames and you unlock all of the toys that are given to you when you complete said minigames. A cutscene then shows that Glitch Trap was inside of a recharge station. After that, some staff bots ambush you, but you don't seem to die. Instead, we see the POV of another staff bot. This time, the same staff bot that gave Cassie the Vanny mask at the start of Ruin. So if this is the canon ending, and most likely since Ruin is in fact canon, the Glitch Trap virus is still up and running. But only time will tell. Maybe Glitch Trap did die. There's not much I can really say when it comes to Help Wanted 2, as it's just a continuation of Help Wanted 1. The games are a lot scarier and do become more of a challenge as you progress through them, but other than that, it's just Help Wanted 1, just with more minigames.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a massive place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun combine.
Step aside for a bit and let's talk about the Five Nights at Freddy's books. On December 26th, 2019, the first installment of the Fazbear's Fright anthology series of books was released. Containing 3 stories in 1 book each, Fazbear's Frights continued to keep telling stories all the way up to 2022, featuring 12 books total. The first, titled Into the Pit, tells the story of a 10-year-old boy named Oswald, who, after 3 years, struggles with his family after his dad ends up losing his job at a local mill site after it got shut down, causing all of Oswald's friends to move away from town. He's left alone, gets bullied at school. While his mom has a stable job at a hospital, they're unfortunately unable to move, and on top of that, Oswald's grandma also requires help when needed. I know the feeling, kid. Most days, Oswald's dad would give him some money so that after school, Oswald can stay at the local pizzeria owned by a man named Jeff. And he stays there until his family comes back from work, and I guess from looking for work. Things take a turn when one day, Oswald discovers an abandoned ball pit inside of Jeff's pizza. And when checking it out and unhygienically jumps into it, Oswald is transported back in time to the year 1985, back when Jeff's Pizza was once the well-lit and alive Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. After making some new friends, Oswald notices a man in a yellow rabbit costume, seemingly making sure that no one follows him. However, Oswald decides to do the unthinkable. Following the yellow rabbit into a party room, he then sees 6 kids lying on the floor, and after being chased, the entire pizza place erupts into chaos. Oswald manages to save some other kids who got trapped inside the pizzeria, but is ultimately chased by the yellow rabbit. Jumping back into the ball pit, Oswald returns to the present timeline where his dad is waiting for him. In an attempt to explain everything that had happened, out of nowhere, the yellow rabbit attacks Oswald's dad, dragging him down into the pit. After trying to save his dad, Oswald at first is successful. However, some things happened. Oswald's dad has been replaced by the yellow rabbit, and get this, he mimics him, posing as Oswald's dad and taking on his form for the next 5 nights. Oswald tries to avoid any and all interaction with his fake dad. Going back to school like nothing happened, throughout the next nights, Oswald finds different ways to escape from home and runs back to Jeff's pizza place, and jumps back into the pit to try and save his real dad. After saving several kids who got trapped by the yellow rabbit, and eventually overpowering Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and the yellow rabbit, Oswald finds and rescues his dad. However, the yellow rabbit isn't giving up easily. In one final attempt to stop Oswald, the yellow rabbit then tries to kill him, but is simply pushed away. I guess a small 10-year-old is a lot more powerful than you, buddy. After returning to the present time, the yellow rabbit then jumps out of the ball pit, but gets tangled up with the ropes that hold the ball pit together. After struggling for a bit, the ropes then wrap around the yellow rabbit's neck, causing him to choke and finally stop moving. Oswald finally saves his dad, and they move on like nothing happened. Now, a sequel novel titled Return to the Pit was released in 2024 as a choose-your-own-adventure interactive experience. I won't get into this story as I highly encourage you guys to go and check it out yourselves. Now for Into the Pit, that's just one of 5 different endings that you can get in the game adaptation. There's several endings that range from Oswald leaving Freddy Fazbear's after the first attack, leaving him stranded in 1985, an ending where Oswald meets the same fate as his dad, and an ending where Oswald lives a happier life with his family, and having Jeff's pizza place fully reworked to be made new and fresh. Overall, Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit, despite being a game adaptation from the many stories the books have, it really depends if you would want to see this game considered to be canon to the mainline game series. As for the game itself, it's really good, very well polished, and probably one of the most graphic games out there in the series. Despite not having too much bloody imagery, we do actually see dead bodies and some brutal biting. Into the Pit released on the 10th anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's, and fans of the game, including Scott Cawthon himself, is open to the idea of having MegaCat Studios, the developers of Into the Pit, develop another game based on the Fazbear's Frights book series. But right now, MegaCat Studios is working on FNAF World 2, so only time will tell.
For damage to property or person. Thank you for being a valued member of the Fazbear team.
Set at the very beginning of the FNAF timeline, Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic is the latest game to be released, and it tells the origins of, you guessed it, we take the role of a man named Arnold, and our dispatch over at Fazbear Entertainment has sent us out on one last job. Retrieve the lost Fazbear property over at Edwin Murray's Costume Manor, which turns out to be the Mimic, an animatronic capable of becoming anyone it comes across, fitting into any costume, changing its size, and of course, changing its voice to sound like anyone. Throughout the game, Dispatch asks you to go to various parts of the building you explore, all while being chased and hunted by the very thing you are tasked to retrieve. We come to find out that the Mimic was not actually built for Fazbear Entertainment, but instead was for Edwin Murray himself. Edwin was an inventor who got married to a woman named Fiona, and together had a child named David. A loving family who loved their jobs and one who celebrated David's birthday every year. That was until Fazbear began to commission Edwin for something. Something big. It turns out that despite William Afton creating the animatronics we all know and love, Edwin Murray was the creator of the characters Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy, with Chica being a creation from Fiona. We also learned that Edwin was working on prototype Springlock suits for Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, a brand new character named Bub, and Monty. That's right, the Monty from Security Breach was not a Fazbear original, but it was also a creation of Edwin Murray. On top of this, Edwin also worked on the future layout for the first game's pizzeria, along with prototype designs for the puppet. The biggest twist of this franchise, William Afton hired Edwin Murray to create the new mascot characters only for William to screw over Edwin's company up, stealing company assets, making him go bankrupt, causing him to lose employees. Edwin really went through it. However, the worst came at the loss of Fiona, dying in a fire during a fall festival. Attempting to cope with this, Edwin then goes on to build M1, also known as FNAF Fiona, a new AI program that adopts the personality and memories of the real Fiona. As time went on, the M1 program began to slowly replace Fiona, but not all was good, as one day on his 5th or 6th birthday, David tragically dies while playing outside. It's unknown how David dies, but with this happening, Edwin lost his whole family on top of losing his work. With David now gone, this led to the creation of M2, a second program to mimic the exact same thing, only with David's personality and memories. However, with Edwin slowly showing acts of aggression and violence towards M2, it began to mimic these actions as well, leading it to becoming the walking killing machine that can mimic anyone and anything it comes across. This game's got 3 endings. A non-canon ending where we see M2 get fixed up and starts mimicking David again, only for it to get shut down again. Hold on. This bedroom kinda looks like... Oh my god! Not only did William Afton screw over Edwin's company and steal all the assets while he lost his family, but he also stole his house? David's bedroom is very identical to the bedroom we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 4. We know this isn't canon thanks to his appearance in the extremely far future in the Ruin DLC for Security Breach. A second ending where we listen to our dispatch and leave the building as ordered. However, it gets revealed that the dispatch we've been hearing this entire time since we entered the building was in fact M1 all along, mimicking our dispatch unit's voice to make sure that nothing gets out of the building and into the hands of Fazbear Entertainment. This then leads to us driving away from Edwin's factory, only to be fired by Fazbear Entertainment, and then being killed by M2, who had snuck into the van that we arrived on. The third ending, which is mostly considered to be the true ending of the game, has us disobeying M1, who is mimicking our dispatch unit, remember? And has us travel to the underground building where we see the many things Edwin's company made for Fazbear Entertainment. After fighting off M2, we finally meet M1 face to face, revealed to be a giant AI computer system. M1 then proceeds to send us to Edwin's house, where we then find the thing we've been looking for, which then leads into a chase sequence across the factory with M2. Getting out of the building right on time just before it all burns down, we hop into the van and M2 is in the van waiting for us and causes us to crash, leaving us unconscious. But the data diver we've been using throughout the whole game gets taken by M2, seeing him walk away to somewhere. We don't know what happens to us, and we don't know what the Mimic does after these events. But we do know that the Mimic is still out there and operating, since it still operates all the way down in the far future during the present day during the events of Ruin. Overall, a fantastic game from Steelwool Studios, and may I just say, definitely a major step up from both Security Breach and Ruin. Yeah, it still has its issues, but Secret of the Mimic is one FNAF game that tells a massive chunk of brand new lore and story that introduces a brand new antagonist to the game series. And it's overall just a great experience. Well, that about does it for this chapter. Ever since Security Breach, Five Nights at Freddy's has been going on strong. We've had two very successful and very well received adapted film versions of Five Nights at Freddy's from Blumhouse, and despite the negative reviews from the critics and the questionable writing, the fans clearly love what the movies are doing. And I can't wait for the inevitable third installment in the series of movies. On top of that, recently celebrating its 12-year anniversary, we got brand new teasers for 2 new games and an IRL location that will be opening up permanently set in New Jersey. Brand new book covers, and of course we can't forget about the fan games. Many new games set in the Fazbear Fanverse initiative are set to release. Games such as like The Joy of Creation, Pop Goes, Five Nights at Candy's, and much, much more. And so with that, I leave this chapter until the next several releases in the FNAF series. And maybe, just maybe, we will be branching out into different types of Five Nights at Freddy's content. You can do your thing now, by the way.